Hello, my name is Chase Call, and this is my IGME 110 reflection presentation. The first thing that we learned in this class was RGB and CMYK colors, with RGB being additive to white and CMYK being subtractive to be black. These are used for different types of designs and are very efficient in what they do. The next piece of visual imagery that we learned was bitmapping, which is using pixels on a grid to create images. Now these images are very efficient and useful, but when scaled up they can cause problems when you notice the pixels as they get larger and larger. To help with this decrease in quality from scaling, there's anti-aliasing, which allows images made with bitmapping to become better in quality by blending them together with the background colors. The next thing that we learned in this class was vector imaging, which is similar to bitmapping as it is a digital drawing, but it is made through mathematical expressions in software using control points and lines. Vector imaging is also resolution independent, which means as it is scaled up and down, the lines will not blur as a product of the resolution increasing. Now this is useful for digital, but when printing, all vectors must be converted to bitmap. One of the next big things we learned was elements of visual style, and lines was one of the first things we learned, such as contour lines with the hand shown above, or stylized lines with the cell shading shown in the Psycho from Borderlands 3 in the image. We also learned about the color wheel with monochrome, saturated, desaturated, and complementary colors conveying different emotions, depending, and then rule of thirds, which is dividing an image into thirds and then using the intersections to convey interest points. The next big topic we learned was web development. We used HTML as the back-end coding to set properties and restrictions to fonts and sentence structures and paragraph structures. With the HTML coded, we would use CSS to do all the front-end work, putting in images, coloring the background, the font, changing the font styles, and all in all trying to make the website look more appealing to whatever user. The next big topic that we learned was that of audio production, using Audacity to record files and then cut, trim, and edit files so that we could create what we needed and implement them into videos. While learning the basics of Audacity, we also learned the history of audio in media, specifically games, how it went from 8-bit beeps and boops to 16-bit and eventually full-on orchestras and musicians playing. Another big thing we learned was types of audio, differentiating between diegetic and non-diegetic, diegetic being in scene or in-game, like that Wayne listening to Queen, or non-diegetic, like a narrator saying something to the player. We also learned different types of audio in media, such as narration or dialogue, voiceovers, and special effects, all of these used to convey different ideas to either the player or the user. One last topic that we learned from audio was the science of audio, such as Nyquist theorem, which is the theorem of using 2 samples per wavelength to create an efficient and clean sound from whatever you're recording. In the science of audio, we also talked about headroom, which is the safe space for audio to be at for volume to prevent clipping or loss of any information through the recording. The next thing that we learned of importance was video editing, starting with transitions in videos. One of them subject to subject, shown with the cat and the person in the top, and then action to action with the chopping, cutting, and boiling in the bottom panel. After transitions, we learned about camera shots and techniques. One of the more famous ones being a reaction shot shown through the Home Alone child with his screaming face, and the other one showing an eyeline shot drawing the user's attention towards the painting that she is looking at. One of the final things that we learned was visual design in film, starting with territorial spacing. As shown in the images above, one is more intimate, closer together, showing a relationship between the two. The other is farther away, showing a relationship, but more strained. After territorial spacing, we learned about camera shots, which can confer different meanings, such as an extreme close-up showing more emotion and fear, or a bird's eye view showing more informative spacing and knowledge. Looking back on everything that I have said in this presentation and what I have learned this semester, I feel that I have truly learned a lot, and I will hopefully be continuing this learning throughout my college experience.